This happened about a week ago. I was in my early 30s and had just moved into a new apartment. I thought working from home as a freelance graphic designer would give me some peace. But late one Friday night, while I was glued to my screen meeting a deadline, I heard a soft knock at my door. It caught me by surprise. I figured it was my food delivery. I opened the door, but the hallway was empty. I felt a chill run down my spine. I thought maybe it was just a neighbor playing a trick. I went back to my desk but couldn't shake that uneasy feeling. The next few days were strange. One night a pizza showed up, but I hadn't ordered anything. It was odd, but I figured it was a mistake. Then, a package arrived with a single slice of cake inside. I hadn't ordered that either. I laughed it off, but after the cake delivery I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time I glanced out the window, I thought I saw a shadowy figure lurking across the street. At first I brushed it off as my imagination, but the deliveries kept coming. One night, I found a bowl of soup outside my door. Just soup in a bowl, no Tupperware. I started to feel anxious. I looked outside more often, spotting those figures again. They were always there, lurking too far away for me to make out faces. I thought maybe it was all in my head. Still, I couldn't ignore the dread building inside me. That night, the knocking came again. This time I froze. My heart was racing and I could hardly breathe. I waited a few moments, then opened the door, bracing for something. Of course, it was empty. Just the hallway, waiting silently for me. I stepped out, feeling a cold gust of air rush past me. I didn't want to call out. I slowly walked back inside and shut the door, thinking I was losing my mind. Every little noise made me jump. I started to dread my phone buzzing. Then, one evening, I felt a strange urge to look outside. I didn't want to, but I couldn't help myself. I opened the curtain, and my breath caught in my throat. There they were again, those figures standing across the street just watching me. I counted 3 or 4, but I couldn't be sure. My heart felt like it would burst. I almost called the police, but what would I say? I turned away from the window, my mind racing with questions. Why was this happening to me? Then I heard it. A soft knock coming from my door. My heart pounded in my chest. What was happening? I wanted to stay inside, but I needed to know who was there this time. I took a deep breath and approached the door. My hand hesitated on the handle. I felt trapped. I took another breath, trying to calm down. What if it was just another surprise delivery? What if it wasn't? I stood there frozen, listening to the silence in my apartment as that knock echoed in my mind. I didn't know what to do. I finally mustered the courage to open the door. My hand trembled on the handle as I pulled it open just a crack. The hallway was empty again, but something felt different. I stepped outside, peering down the corridor. The lights flickered ominously overhead. I leaned against the doorframe, my heart hammering. On impulse, I reached down and grabbed the doormat, my feet brushing against something small and soft. I knelt to pick it up. It was a white envelope, sealed but without a return address. My instinct screamed at me to toss it back and retreat into my apartment, but curiosity got the better of me. I ripped it open right there, heart racing. Inside was a note written in neat, precise handwriting. "You're not alone. The watchful eyes are everywhere." I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Who was watching me? Did they know what I was feeling? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the adjacent apartment. I jumped, clutching the envelope tightly. My thoughts raced. Was that my imagination playing tricks again? Or was I really losing my grip on reality? I glanced up at the window where I'd seen the figures. They were gone now. My mind backtracked, remembering their shapes, the way they shifted in the shadows. Focusing on that sight, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. It was almost like they knew I would look for them. I took a step back into my apartment, shutting the door firmly behind me. The note lay shaking in my hands. I regretted opening the door, but I felt a sudden surge of defiance. If someone was watching, I needed to find out who it was. I couldn't be paralyzed by fear anymore. Steeling myself, I decided to look through my window again. I slowly parted the curtain, scanning the street. The shadows crept back into view, but this time, there were more of them. I counted at least 5 figures, their outlines barely visible in the dim light. They seemed closer, their heads tilting as if they were trying to get a better look at me. This time was different. Instead of retreating, I leaned forward, narrowing my eyes. That's when I saw it. One of the figures stepped into the light of a street lamp. It was a woman with long, dark hair and a blank expression staring directly at me. I felt a jolt in my chest. Something about her was chillingly familiar, like a shadow from my past. Then she raised a hand and pointed directly at me. My breath caught in my throat. I stumbled back from the window, my mind racing. How did she know? What did she want? In a panic, I turned away from the window, glancing around the room, desperate for answers. The knocking hadn't stopped. It was a steady rhythm now, pounding in my ears. I glanced back at the door. Someone was definitely there. But did I dare open it again? I stood frozen, my hand hovering over the doorknob. The knocking continued, each tap sending a jolt through me. I debated whether to stay trapped in my apartment or confront whatever awaited me on the other side. The envelope crumpled in my fist, a grim reminder that something was seriously wrong. Finally, I took a deep breath and turned the knob. The door swung open slowly, and I was greeted by the sight of the hallway. Empty. My heart raced, uncertainty gnawing at me. Had I imagined the knocking, or was I losing it completely? I peered down the corridor, half expecting to see the woman standing there still pointing at me. But there was nothing, just the flickering light and the endless silence. I glanced back inside my apartment, weighed down by the sense that I was being watched. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling as it echoed down the hallway. No answer. I took a cautious step outside, scanning the area for any sign of movement, any trace of the figures I'd seen just moments ago. Nothing. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something on the floor next to my door. I bent down and picked up a small delivery bag, the kind that came from a restaurant. My stomach sank. I hadn't ordered anything, and I'd forgotten about the last delivery I had a week ago that had left me unable to sleep for nights. What if this was connected? I hesitated, fingers curling around the bag as I carried it inside. Crazy ideas flooded my mind. What if it was a trap? But I couldn't help but wonder if it held some sort of clue. Setting the bag down on my kitchen counter, I tore it open. Inside was a meal that looked untouched. Steaming hot, it smelled delicious, but my stomach churned at the idea of eating food that had come from nowhere. There was a piece of paper resting on top of the container. I snatched it up. "Eat it and you'll see." I felt the color drain from my face. This couldn't be happening. Who would send me something like this? I could feel my heart thumping violently in my chest. Why did they want me to eat it? What would I see? I glanced around again, half expecting someone to appear in the doorway. Instead, there was only silence, amplifying my dread. Taking a step back, I weighed the options in my head. I could either eat the food, hoping for answers, or toss it away and keep my distance. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the container, deciding to at least check what it contained. I pulled the lid off and peered inside. That's when I saw it, a reflection of something moving behind me in the kitchen window. I turned quickly. Nothing was there. But the air felt heavy, charged with something I couldn't identify. The unease settled in my bones. I went to put the food back down, but my hand trembled so much that I almost dropped it. Then I felt it, the sensation of being observed. I glanced back at the window, searching for any sign of the figures or the woman. Then everything went dark. I gasped, my heart racing. For a moment, I thought I might be dreaming, caught in a nightmare I couldn't awaken from. My surroundings felt both familiar and alien. I blinked, trying to adjust to the darkness. The kitchen window was now covered in an inky blackness that swallowed every hint of light. Fumbling, I reached for my phone, hoping to use the screen to illuminate the room. I felt a surge of relief when I found it on the counter. The blue glow flickered to life as I turned it on, revealing shadows that danced along the walls. The food container rested still in my other hand. The reflection in the window had unsettled me. Had I really seen something? Just nerves, I thought. I glanced back at the window, half expecting to see more. But all I could see was my own pale face staring back, framed in the darkness. I shook my head and took a deep breath, trying to push the panic aside. I was being ridiculous. I had to stay calm. With determination, I stepped closer to the food container and took another look inside, my phone light casting eerie shadows. The meal inside looked even less appealing now. I noticed something peculiar. There was a small object buried beneath the rice. I hesitated, my gut twisting. I reached in and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was slightly stained, as if it had been placed there in a rush. Unfolding it, I read the message written in shaky handwriting. "Watch closely. The truth will reveal itself." My mind raced. What did that even mean? Before I could process it, I heard the soft creak of the floorboards outside my apartment. I froze, every muscle in my body tensing. Was someone there? My breath caught in my throat. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear anything over the pounding of my heart. There it was again, a faint shuffle. I stepped away, feeling the cold sweat trickle down my spine. I had to act. I stumbled back into the living room, keeping my eyes fixed on the door. Should I call for help? I picked up my phone again, my fingers trembling as I dialed 911. But as I waited, I remembered the last time I'd called them, the drawn-out silence before they'd arrived. What if this was something worse? Suddenly, a series of sharp knocks broke the tension. I jumped, nearly dropping my phone. The sound was louder than before, more insistent. "Open up!" a voice called out from the other side. It was a man's voice, deep and commanding. My heart raced as I glanced at the food container again, knowing I had no choice. I couldn't ignore it. Should I answer? I had to see who it was. But every instinct screamed at me to run. Then it hit me. I remembered the woman. She had pointed directly at me. She knew something. Whoever was at my door, they were about to find out too. With shaky hands, I dropped the phone and moved towards the door, feeling the weight of the food container in my hand. I hesitated, ready to turn the knob, my pulse drowning out everything else. What awaited me on the other side? I took a deep breath and turned the doorknob, half expecting the worst. The door creaked open, revealing a tall man in a dark coat. His face was obscured by the shadows, but I could make out the sharp lines of his jaw. He stood there, looking at me intently. "Are you Sarah?" he asked, his voice low and steady. I hesitated. "Yes, but—" He stepped closer, invading my personal space. "You need to come with me. It's not safe here." Panic gripped me again. I glanced back at the dark room, unsure of my next move. Who was this man? Did he know about the message? "What do you mean? Who are you?" "I can't explain everything now, just—" He paused, and his eyes narrowed slightly. "We don't have time. There are people looking for you." His words hit me like a punch. I felt the air thicken like the walls were closing in. "I don't even know you." He leaned in, his voice becoming urgent. "Listen, the woman you saw, she's part of this. She alerted me. You need to trust me." Trust him? I felt my mind racing. The woman had pointed at me, but what did that mean? And now a stranger was claiming that my life was in danger? Suddenly another series of knocks echoed through the hallway, louder this time. The man's eyes widened. "We have to go, now!" His urgency propelled me into action. I backed away from the door and looked around for another way out. My heart raced at the thought that someone might burst through the door any moment. I sprang over to the window, yanking it open. The cool night air hit my face, mixing with the rising dread inside me. "Wait," the man warned. "That'll just draw attention." I stopped, torn between fear and the instinct to escape. "What do you suggest?" "Grab your phone and anything important. We can't waste time," he urged, glancing over his shoulder at the door. I quickly ran to grab my phone from the counter, my fingers shaking as I tucked it in my pocket. I glanced over at the food container on the table, still clutching the note. "I need this," I said, grabbing it. The man eyed it warily, but nodded, pushing me toward the window. "Let's go. Trust me this one last time." I climbed out first, landing on the fire escape. I didn't look back at my apartment, but I could feel the weight of it all closing in. As we descended a level, I heard harsh voices behind me. "This way," someone shouted. My stomach dropped. They found me. I turned to the man, panic in my eyes. Who are they? Enemies. They think you know something. That made everything worse. But I don't. I don't know anything. Before I could process my words, the metal of the fire escape screeched as a shadow rushed toward us. I had to move. Keep going, the man shouted. That's when I saw it, a glint of steel in the darkness. I didn't have time to think. I took off running. I had jumped into a nightmare, and all I could hope for was to escape it. I sprinted down the fire escape, my heart pounding in rhythm with my breath. Each step echoed in my ears alongside the shouts from above. The man was right behind me, urgency coursing through his every action. We reached the bottom, and I scanned the street, looking for any potential escape. Where now? I asked, panic seeping into my voice. He grabbed my arm, pulling me towards an alleyway. Just follow my lead. I stumbled after him, the grip of his hand tight but reassuring. Shadows danced in the alley as we rushed deeper into the darkness. My mind was racing, piecing together bits of information like a jigsaw puzzle that didn't quite fit. Who was this man? What had that woman seen? My pulse quickened with every haunting thought. As we entered the alley, I could hear the muffled shouts fading but not disappearing completely. They were close. My throat tightened as we ducked behind a row of bins, the smell of refuse mixing with the cool night air. Stay quiet, he whispered, peering around the edge. I nodded, barely able to contain my shivers. Time dragged on as we pressed ourselves against the cold metal. I could feel my heartbeat reverberating in my chest. It felt surreal, hiding in a filthy alley while dangers loomed just outside. Suddenly I heard footsteps approaching, heavy and deliberate. The man's grip tightened around my wrist. We might need to move, he said quietly. I looked at him, my eyes wide with uncertainty. What if they see us? He didn't answer. Instead, he leaned closer, his expression intent. You have to trust me. Just wait for the right moment. Seconds felt like hours as the footsteps grew closer. I held my breath, every instinct telling me to flee. Just when I thought I couldn't take it any longer, the footsteps passed by. Let's go, he said, leading me out from our hiding spot. We darted back into the main street. The city lights felt almost blinding after the darkness of the alley. I squinted, trying to catch my bearings. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. I have a contact. He'll help us, he replied, urgency creeping back into his tone. As we hurried down the street, I caught a glimpse of a figure out of the corner of my eye. My breath caught in my throat. Someone was following us, a shadow moving with purpose. Someone's behind us. The man turned, his jaw set. Run! We broke into a full sprint. My legs burned as I struggled to keep up, terror flooding my veins. I could hear the footsteps gaining on us. I glanced back just in time to see a flash of movement before we rounded a corner. Over here, he urged, pulling me into a narrow side street. The sound of footfalls faded, but I felt danger still lurked near. My mind raced with questions, but there wasn't time for answers. Suddenly, the world around us exploded in chaos as a loud crash echoed from behind, sending my heart into overdrive. Move faster, he shouted, urgency now boiling over in panic. Then it hit me. I didn't just need to escape. I needed answers. But for now, survival was my only priority. I had no idea how deep this nightmare went, but I was about to find out. We burst onto a dimly lit street, the glow from the storefronts barely illuminating our path. I scanned the area, looking for a place to hide, my hands clammy and my mind racing. The man led me down an equally darkened side street, the silence almost suffocating. Where are we? I managed to ask between breaths as we slowed down. Just a couple more blocks, he replied, glancing over his shoulder, as if he sensed the shadows watching us. There's a safe house nearby. Why would anyone want to help us? I whispered, fearing the answer. Because we're in this together now, he said, his tone serious. We didn't just escape. We saw something we shouldn't have. Before I could ask what he meant, another crash echoed somewhere in the distance. It felt like the world was crumbling around us. I began to feel the weight of what was happening. It wasn't just a regular chase, it was something deeper, something darker. Keep moving, he instructed, pulling me forward again. We crossed another street. My legs felt weak, and the cold air scraped across my skin. I noticed the tension in his jaw. Whatever was happening, he was just as scared as I was. What do you know about the people chasing us? I finally spat out, desperate for some clarity. They're not just anyone, he said, his voice low. They're part of something bigger, a group that doesn't let go of loose ends. Loose ends? I repeated, frantically trying to piece things together. People who know too much. They're not afraid to do what it takes to keep their secrets safe. Fear gripped me tighter than before. I didn't know anything. I just happened to... That's exactly how it starts, he interrupted. You see something and they come after you. We need to get to my contact. He can explain everything. We reached a gray building tucked away between two others, almost invisible if you didn't know it was there. Stay behind me, he instructed. I nodded, anxiety bubbling inside. As we approached the door, I felt the prickling sensation of being watched. My instinct screamed for me to turn back. But before I could voice my thoughts, a loud voice boomed from behind us, echoing through the empty street. There they are! I spun around just in time to see the shadowy figure emerge from the darkness, energy coiled like a serpent ready to strike. Run! The man yelled, pushing me forward. We dashed to the door just as a heavy footsteps gained on us. I fumbled with the handle, panic blurring my vision. Finally, the door swung open and we slipped inside, shutting it just as something slammed against it from the other side. The room smelled musty, filled with the echoes of time. I could hear muffled voices in the distance. We'll be safe in here, he promised, but his anxiety was palpable. That's when I saw it. A flickering monitor in the corner displaying feeds of the streets outside. My heart raced as I realized someone was watching us. Why is this place wired? I asked, my voice shaky. I told you they always know where you are, he replied, his eyes scanning the screen. But as I looked closer, something caught my eye, 2 figures approaching our safe house. My throat went dry. They were coming for us. This was only the beginning. I backed away from the monitor, trying to calm my racing heart. What do we do now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The man's eyes darted between the screen and the door. We can't stay here. They'll breach it soon enough. We need to find another way out. Another way out? I repeated, panic bubbling up. We can't just walk out there. They're right outside. He turned to me, urgency etched into his features. Trust me. We have to move. I'll handle it. Just follow my lead. Before I could respond, he hurried to another door at the far end of the room. I felt a mix of fear and determination urging me to stay close to him. He opened the door slowly, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. Go, he urged, gesturing for me to step through. I hesitated for a moment, hearing muffled voices growing louder from the main door. Finally, I stepped inside, taking a deep breath as he followed and closed the door behind us. The air felt damp and heavy as we descended, each creak of the old wooden stairs echoing in my ears. As we reached the bottom, the light flickered on, bathing the space in a faint yellow glow. The basement was cluttered with boxes and stacks of old newspapers. I could smell something musty, like mildew and old memories. What is this place? I asked, scanning the grim surroundings. It's a storage area. My contact sometimes keeps things down here, he replied, rifling through a pile of boxes. He'll know what to do. There's no way they won't find us down here, I said, my voice tight with dread. They won't come here. This place is a dead end for them. He spoke with conviction, but I could see the uncertainty behind his eyes. A loud crash jolted me, a reminder of the chaos above. We don't have much time, he urged, pushing a box aside. I watched as he pulled out a small backpack, tossing it over his shoulder. There's a way out back here. We just need to hurry. I followed him deeper into the basement, my mind racing with questions. Who is your contact? What do they know? I'll explain later, he said, glancing over his shoulder. I could tell he was keeping something from me, and the thought made me even more anxious. We wove through the maze of boxes until we reached a small door at the far end of the basement. It looked ancient, the wood warped and splintered. He grasped the handle and pulled it open, revealing an alley behind the building. As we stepped outside, the cold air hit my face like a slap. I glanced back at the building, my heart pounding as I realized we were still not safe. "Where now?" I asked, looking into the ill-lit alley that seemed to stretch on indefinitely. He hesitated for a moment, glancing left and right. "We need to get to the next block. There's a parking garage. We can use the cars to blend in." Just as he stepped forward, the sound of footsteps echoed behind us. I felt the blood drain from my face. "They found us!" "Run!" he shouted, pulling me by the arm. We dashed further into the darkness, fear propelling us forward. We barely made it to the end of the alley when I caught a glimpse of the figures, their faces obscured but filled with menace. My breath hitched. I realized in that moment that our escape was far from over. Suddenly, a blinding light flooded the alley, illuminating the path ahead. My heart raced. I could feel the weight of their presence closing in. But then I noticed something in the shadows. A car revving up, its headlights cutting through the night. "Get in!" the man yelled, urgency in his voice. As we raced toward it, I couldn't shake the feeling that stepping into that car might just lead us into deeper trouble. This was only the beginning. I dove into the car, my heart hammering against my ribcage. The man followed close behind, slamming the door just as a shout rang out from the alley. "Go! Go!" he urged the driver, a grizzled figure behind the wheel. The engine roared to life, and we lurched forward. I glanced back, watching the dark figures flood into the alley, their faces still hidden, but their intentions clear. Panic gripped me again, but I focused on the road ahead. "Who are they?" I gasped, breathless. Without turning, the driver replied, "Just keep your head down. They want something from us and we can't let them catch us." My mind raced with questions. Why were they after us? And what did the man know? But before I could voice another concern, the driver whipped the car around the corner, tires screeching, and we barreled down a narrow street. "I need you to stay quiet," the man beside me said, his tone firm. "If they see or hear us, we're dead." I nodded, feeling the gravity of the situation. The driver kept glancing in the rearview mirror, and I could see the worry etching deeper into his features. We rounded another bend and the surroundings grew increasingly unfamiliar. A block of crumbling buildings loomed ahead, their windows boarded up. "What's our plan?" I asked, trying to keep my voice low. "We need to lay low for a bit," the man muttered. "Then we'll find a safe place to regroup and figure this out." Suddenly, a blaring horn pierced the air, and I jerked forward in my seat as the driver swerved to avoid a car that nearly cut us off. "Watch it!" he shouted, glancing toward the figure behind the wheel. "What was that?" I cried, anxiety climbing. The driver's knuckles turned white as he gripped the steering wheel. "I think they've sent someone to intercept us," he said, intensity rising in his voice. "Hold on!" The car shot forward as he pressed the accelerator. I glanced back again, spotting a dark sedan weaving through traffic behind us, accelerating fast. My stomach dropped. "They're coming for us!" I turned back to the front, frozen with fear and uncertainty. "What do we do?" "Keep your eyes peeled for an alley. If we can lose them—" He didn't finish the thought, but I knew what he meant. As we sped along, a cacophony of car horns and shouts filled the air around us. Every turn felt like a game of chance, and I could almost feel the tension wrapping tighter around me. Then it happened. Out of nowhere, the sedan cut us off, forcing the driver to slam on the brakes. The screech of tires filled the air, and I could feel the adrenaline surging through me as we skidded to a stop. The driver glared through the windshield, fists clenching in frustration. "We need to get out. Now!" That's when I saw it, a flicker of movement beyond the windshield. A figure emerged from the shadows, determined and fierce. I squinted, trying to get a better look, but it was hard to see. "Get ready," the man next to me whispered, preparing to unbuckle his seatbelt. "Trust me, we have to move fast." I nodded, but dread pooled in my stomach. Whatever was coming next, I felt it was going to change everything. The moment the car doors slammed, chaos erupted. We launched ourselves out and hit the damp pavement, adrenaline spiking. The man scrambled to pull me along, urgency anchoring his grip on my arm. The sounds of footsteps thudded behind us, and I could sense the pursuit was relentless. As we dashed into the nearest alley, the smell of refuse mixed with the cold air. But I barely registered it. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out everything else. I glanced back, but the darkness obscured the figures chasing us. Were they still there? How many? "We have to turn," he shouted, tugging me left into a narrower passage. "Stay close." We rounded the corner and skidded to a halt in front of a large dumpster. My breath hitched as I glanced over my shoulder. I could hear them now, deep voices calling out, getting closer. The adrenaline turned to a cold dread. I had never imagined I would end up here, fleeing for my life from shadows I barely understood. "Help me with this," he said, moving to push the dumpster aside. For a moment, a flicker of hope surged within me. "There's a way through!" With frantic energy, we shifted the heavy dumpster together, revealing a narrow gap that led to another alley. I squeezed through, feeling the air grow thicker the further in I went. My heart raced, but focused on survival. Fear had turned into a sort of raw determination. Once through, we fell silent, crouching behind a pile of debris. My back pressed against the bricks. I could just make out the voices from the other side of the alley, all the while hearing my own breath as if it were a shout in the darkness. "Where did they go?" one voice grumbled. "They were right here. Keep looking. We can't let them get away." The urgency in their words shoved a knife of terror into my gut. Time stagnated around us. It felt like we could stay hidden forever. But I could feel the urgency building in the man beside me. It was palpable. "We can't stay here. They know we're close." "What's your plan?" I whispered, my throat dry and tight. "I have a friend nearby," he said, glancing around to ensure we were still concealed. "He'll help us. Just trust me." Nodding, I fought against the rising tide of my own anxiety. I still sensed the weight of unanswered questions. Where did the woman with the dark hair fit into this? Who were those figures, and what were they after? "Let's move," he urged, breaking my thoughts. We stayed low, zigzagging through alleyways, each turn tightening the knot in my stomach. I constantly looked over my shoulder, half expecting to see those lurking figures emerging from the darkness. Every so often, a shadow flitted across my vision, and I would shiver, holding my breath. Finally, we paused in front of an unmarked door tucked between two rundown buildings. The moment he knocked, a voice gruffly answered from behind the door. "What?" "It's me." "Open up," he replied urgently. A metallic sound followed by a click, and the door swung open, revealing a short man with a tired face, his eyes darting from one of us to the other. "You brought her?" he asked, concern etched across his features. "She's been chased, Carl. We need to explain everything, but we don't have much time," the man insisted, pulling me inside. As we stepped into the dimly lit room, the air felt different, thicker, charged with the weight of unspoken truths. I turned around, my heart still racing. "What's going on?" Carl hesitated. "We'll explain, but first you need to trust us. Your life depends on it." They exchanged glances, and I felt a pang of apprehension ripple through me. "Do you remember the woman?" Carl finally asked, his voice steady, yet heavy with significance. "What about her?" I asked, my voice wavering. The man beside me clenched his fists. "What she saw. That changes everything." The gravity of their words weighed on me like a shroud, pressing down with a crushing force. I could feel it all swirling around me, shadows of the past and the uncertainty of the future colliding in my mind. "I still don't understand," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "Let's get you something to drink." Carl moved toward a cabinet filled with mismatched cups, but nothing could still the torrent of questions tumbling in my mind. As they began to talk, sharing hints of a world I had unwittingly entered, I caught a glimpse of the monitor in the corner of the dim room. Images flickered between static and light, shadows moving purposefully. My heart skipped a beat as I realized the implications. Someone was indeed watching us, someone who was still after me, despite being inside this sanctuary. I inhaled deeply, curiosity battling with the primal instinct to run again. It was coming apart at the seams. This was only the beginning of something I barely understood. As the tension thickened, my eyes darted back and forth, holding tightly to my instinct to survive, and whatever twisted truth lurked just beyond the door.